Good morning, everyone. Again, Joshua Dunham, teaching elder, pastor of Covenant Presbyterian Church in Gresham, and chair of the strategic planning team. It is good again to be connecting with you all. I just would like to say thank you. Thank you to everyone, especially to our team that will be presenting today. They are an amazing group of people, and it is an honor to serve with them. I am so thankful for their leadership and for the skills they bring to the work we're doing. So the purpose of our team, for those that do not know what the strategic planning team is a team that was formed by the PLC to create a new mission and vision statement for the Presbytery that leads us into the future. One that will hopefully be a guiding light for the work that we do as a Presbytery, not just 5, but maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe even longer into the work that we're doing. We've been really thinking about how do we present a mission and vision statement that really helps us think about the long-term reality of the future of our Presbytery. Also, too, we have realized that in this work, we feel called in this time and place to not just provide a statement and put it out in the ethereal no man's land of approval and not provide any ways of actually engaging it, any ways of implementing it, any ways of actually listening and engaging the spirit in it. So we've realized that some of the work that we are doing with the mission and vision statement will actually ask us to maybe create some structural changes, both in the way we think about our finances, but also the way we think about organizing ourselves as a presbytery and as churches. So we want to be able to engage in that reality over the coming time and know that these changes may be substantial in areas, but give us a new light and a new way of looking at our calling in Christ as Presbyterians. I said yes to the invitation from Brian to chair this committee, even though I was already co-chair of the new ministries team, brand new pastor of Covenant Presbyterian Church, and involved in leadership levels on other ecumenical stuff, and kind of staring and going, I have so many things I'm already doing. But saw the reality that Brian was presenting to me and realized God was calling me into this position, and how could I pass up the chance to think about how we as a presbytery move into the future. As a born and raised Oregonian, a person who grew up in this presbytery, grew up in this region, it has been such a blessing to be able to serve here, but also to recognize the changing landscape that we have find ourselves now in from what I grew up in just 20, 30 years ago, right? So how do we think about ourselves as a presbytery, as a organization of multiple churches, and as a ministry and church of God in the midst of this new era that we find ourselves in? So now I'd like to turn it over to our presbyter for mission and vision, Brian Herron, who has been the staff support for our committee.
Thank you, Josh. And I'm so glad that you said yes to this. One of the members of our team has suggested that I approach this as sort of a love letter to the presbytery. And in many ways, this is what I feel like needs to be said at this moment as we prepare ourselves for this next stage in our ecclesiastical presbytery journey. But first, I'd like to start off by just inviting you to take 3 good deep breaths. And the reason is that I think it's important that you hear this in your bodies as much as you hear it in your mind. So let's just take a moment, take 3 good cleansing breaths, get yourself settled in, and allow your body to hear this message as well. So my friends, nearly 4 years ago, I accepted this position knowing that this particular day would come. I knew that eventually we'd hit a fork in the road that would force us to either step into a culture of transformation or that we would need to choose a long-term hospice model. My hope and the hope of the strategic planning team is that we will choose the culture of transformation. We have tremendous wealth and resources in our presbytery. We have over 12,000 members, great community partners, nearly 100 buildings and pieces of property, millions of dollars in endowments, and a religious tradition that serves both as our historic foundation and our future hope. But I do want to caution you that national statistics tell us that only about 10 to 15% of transformational initiatives of this magnitude are successful. And the reason is simple. Most organizations will choose the comfort of the status quo, even if it means dying, over the difficult process of letting go. In many ways, that's what we've been doing over recent years. I wish there was an easier way, as we all do. But my experience tells me that when Jesus said, those who want to save their life will actually lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will save it, that he was pointing directly at the work of transformation. For in between those words of losing our life and saving it is the hard and sometimes lifetime spiritual work of transformation. In January, the strategic planning team began crafting a new mission and vision statement and considering the financial strategies and infrastructure needed to carry out our mission and vision. And at the core of our proposed mission statement is the belief that we need to transform our presbytery from a largely individualistic and siloed approach to a more collaborative approach. What I mean by that is that we need to change the culture of every church for itself to a culture of mutually supporting each other and sharing our gifts in service of a broader and common mission. Collaboration is a good, solid, reformed approach to ministry. It mirrors our language to be a connectional church. When we collaborate, our public witness is strengthened. We are more effective, and creativity is unleashed on behalf of the mission of Jesus Christ. But we believe the deeper issue about why we need to be collaborative in this particular moment is rooted in the fact that we are increasingly experiencing an urgent crisis. We all know that the Presbyterian Church has been in decline now for over 50 years. In fact, it's become so much a part of us that I often feel there's no shock value left anymore, and we are largely unaffected by the startling statistics. But I do believe that something has changed. Up until this point, we've been able to absorb our losses. It's meant churches learning to adapt to less than full-time pastors. Presbyteries have had to adjust to slimmer staffs. Programs have been slashed. Mission giving has plummeted. But we've had enough resources. We've had enough resources that we've absorbed those losses and somehow found a way to continue in ministry. So praise God for that. But I believe there are signs now that if we do not step into a transformative model soon, and I mean very soon, that reinvigorates our mission, we may not have the energy to recover. I watch this in our congregations who get too close to the possibility of legacy or closing and then don't have the energy to redevelop. Historical momentum is a powerful force, and it's especially hard to shift when the status quo of decline no longer alarms us. Here are a few of the signs that I see from where I sit. As I visit with many of our congregations, I sense a deep tiredness and a heavy grief. I hear repeatedly from seniors, I served my time in the church. Where are the people who were supposed to take over when I retired? And in the last 20 years, our membership has dropped by 55%, while our congregations have only dropped by 23%. Now, we could say that that's good news, but it also means that we now have smaller pools of people and older pools of people maintaining the same size churches that they had 20 years ago, but with only half the people. It's no wonder people are feeling tired. And I see this in my own position as well. As each month passes, I'm finding that I'm focusing more of my time on the vehicle for our mission than I am on the mission itself. It's sort of like trying to run an ambulance service with vehicles that spend more time in the shop than on the road responding to calls. And churches are telling me the same thing, that more resources are going into their buildings than they are into the mission that the buildings are there to support. I also see the sense of urgency revealing itself in the Presbytery staff and committees. With consistent membership declines of 3 to 5% for many years, the reality is this. As membership declines in our churches, the Presbytery receives fewer resources, but more calls for support. Another way of saying it is that the expertise needed to resource our churches is rapidly escalating, while the pool of people with that expertise is falling. And that is simply unsustainable. Now, of course, this does not mean that there are no stories of churches who have continued to defy the trends that point to ongoing decline. There are many churches whose mission outreach serve as inspiring models of what is possible. Among them, First Cottage Grove has nearly completed a transitional housing project for people moving from homelessness to housing. Yahat's Community, a church of just 65, stepped into the void in the early days of the pandemic and provided tens of thousands of dollars in much needed relief. First Bend took the organizational lead to create pandemic partners where thousands of local residents volunteered to help their neighbors. Columbia Vancouver continues to be on the cutting edge of innovative ministries and missions. And today, the approval of Peace Church, selling of their property to Square One Villages in exchange for a leaseback. But the thing is, the Presbytery can no longer build itself on the hopes of individual churches who seem to defy the annual downward trends. I believe it is time for us to work together more as a presbytery. It's time to garner our resources from across the presbytery and now commit to a common vision. It's time to get behind a mission that both invites us and, I'm going to say, expects us to work collaboratively. Individually, we are capable of great things, and we hear those stories every presbytery meeting. But together we could create a wave of mission initiatives that would literally transform this presbytery from being a network of individual churches to being a collaborative force for the healing of our communities and the embodiment of the gospel. If we work collaboratively, we'll be able to make a significant dent in the housing crisis, dedicating a number of our properties to serving the homeless, the housing insecure, and people transitioning into self-reliance. If we work collaboratively, we could open a center for Christian spirituality that brings the best spiritual entrepreneurs of the Pacific Northwest together for study, engagement, and education. If we work collaboratively, we could provide a hospitality network on the coast for America's first true pilgrimage route, the coastal Camino, like the Camino de Santiago, where pilgrims could find rest and refreshment for their spiritual and religious treks. If we work collaboratively, we could jumpstart a new movement of home-based churches, churches free of the weight of buildings and big budgets, who commit more of their resources toward mission and community engagement. If we work collaboratively, we could come up with new configurations where no congregation is without pastoral leadership and where every church building is used to its capacity for worship and mission. The strategic planning team is inviting us into a bold and ambitious future of transformation. But it will require us to live into the best of who we are as Presbyterians. Because the one thing I know about transformation is that it always involves both hope and loss. Transformation does not happen without sacrifice. And in these coming years, it's also easy to imagine that many of our churches will need to transform from a worship-based model to a mission-based model, that resources will need to be put in place, to walk with churches as they contemplate closing, putting a legacy in place, or transforming their ministry to something that may be even nearly unrecognizable. Large churches, the small churches, will need to learn to work together and trust each other, putting aside their fear that such partnerships represent a hostile takeover. And 4 congregations may need to merge into 1 congregation, while making 3 buildings available for local and presbytery-wide mission. The point is this, that a culture of transformation based on collaboration will provide great hope for the presbytery to continue the mission of Jesus Christ for generations to come. But it will also unleash a wave of repressed grief in many of our congregations as we go through the painful process of letting go in order to make room for a reimagined mission. And so if we are to be successful at this endeavor, we can't just simply move forward, but we're going to need to live deeply, we need to live into our deepest Presbyterian character as we take care of each other, pray for each other, lean on each other, grieve with each other, and join hands as we step into God's emerging future. My friends, we have an incredible wealth of resources in our presbytery, and for decades, our individual churches have carried faithfully out the mission of Jesus Christ. That I feel very clearly that we are at a fork in the road, and it's time to now live into a culture of transformation or choose a graceful hospice model. I believe, and the strategic planning team believes, this is our moment for transformation. This is our moment to recommit to the mission, to the mission of Jesus Christ together. As we close out, I'd like you once again to just take 3 breaths, but listen to your body. Do you feel hope, relief, grief, sadness, anger? Whatever it is that's in your body, I just invite you to listen to that and allow it to move through you. Just take 3 deep breaths as you let this settle into your body. And I'm going to now turn this over to Kathy Luther and Sarah Sanderson-Dowdy as members of our team, so they can share their experiences with you as well.
Hi, my name's, as Brian said, my name's Kathy Luther. I've been a member of Bethany Presbyterian in Grants Pass for 21 years, and I'm an elder sitting on the Strategic Planning Committee of the Presbytery. When I first came to Bethany in 1999, the pews and Sunday school classes were full. We had a thriving youth group with annual mission trips, both regional and to Mexico for youth service projects. We had 2 adult mission trips to Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina to help rebuild houses, clean up houses. We had powerful congregational care as well as a vital Stevens ministry. As the congregation has gotten older, we no longer have that volunteer power that we once had. Our Thursday morning grounds group cannot physically do the work that they once did to make the church grounds beautiful. There are many examples of the decline in leadership positions due to the age and physical inability. The average age of our congregation is now 75 plus. Our decline has impacted my family personally. I have 3 young adult children who, at the time of their youth group years, looked elsewhere for a youth group. They were influenced by interpretations of Christian faith that are not as inclusive or open-minded as the Reformed Presbyterian tradition, and for which they had been raised. My husband and I chose Bethany for a reason. One of my children ultimately has left the Christian faith, which breaks my heart. And this happened because of her participation in a youth program other than the one in our congregation. My grief is personal, and it is shared by my congregation. With the loss of our younger members, we doubt the sustainability of our ministry. I know that I'm not the only person in the presbytery feeling this way. And yet I still believe our community and the larger world needs a Presbyterian witness. The youth of our community need a Presbyterian witness. We need to find ways to serve our community again and more effectively. Not every church looks like mine, but all of us are facing different kinds of challenges. As a member of the Strategic Planning Committee, my hope is that we might choose to make some meaningful changes that would help us work more closely together to strengthen our shared Presbyterian presence and witness at this particular moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Indeed, you are not alone. Though the congregation that I serve, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Portland, is far from Grants Pass and in the midst of a big city, we too have grief, and we too have a story of decline. I am Pastor Sarah Sanderson Dowdy, also a member of the strategic planning team. I've only been in the Presbytery at the Cascades for 4 years, but I have been in the PCUSA my entire life and have served churches in several different regions of this country. And I know that the grief that we are feeling locally is felt all over our nation. Our stories are different, but across the nation, in rural communities and urban communities alike, the church is facing decline, receding numbers, and anxiety about what lies ahead. I have faith, however, that a Presbyterian witness to the love and grace of Jesus Christ will persist through investment in collaborative ministry. By taking part in collaborative ministry, I mean opening ourselves to a cultural shift that gets us thinking beyond our own individual communities, buildings, and challenges, and thinking more collectively as Presbyterians, sharing ministry together, sharing a good work alongside neighbors of all kinds. Right now, St. Andrew's is living into our mission of connecting with Christ and each other to serve our neighbors by investing in deeply collaborative ministry with a new nonprofit in Portland, Hygiene for All. Hygiene for All has built a resource hub under the Morrison Bridge where neighbors living outside can access showers, bathrooms, clean clothes, and first aid supplies. Now, St. Andrew's wanted to support the laundry dimension of this ministry, but we weren't able to install machines in our building as we had hoped. So another church, an Episcopal church, closer to the hub, is going to be the host for that equipment. And another church, a Lutheran church, is overseeing donations and storing things until they're needed at the hub. And our congregation will provide as many volunteers as we can muster, but we too don't have the volunteer power we once had. And we will likely be working alongside other concerned citizens, both housed and unhoused, Presbyterian and of all sorts, of faith and no faith. Alone, we wouldn't be able to do this, but collectively, we are making a difference. And St. Andrew's was able to give Hygiene for All a $1,000 gift thanks to the challenge grant from the Presbytery, which means that you all helped us to participate in this ministry as well. collaboration can change the way we work, both within our walls and beyond our walls, and allow us to live out our shared ministry priorities together, to share burdens as well as joys, to lend energy to one another, and could truly bring encouragement to us all as we share in ministry together more fully. And one of our team members, the Reverend Morgan Schmidt, who we celebrated earlier, she's unable to be with us today live, but she has prepared a thoughtful video for us to continue our reflection on the grief that accompanies change and the hope in collaboration.
Hi, friends. I'm Morgan Schmidt. I'm one of the pastors at First Presbyterian in Bend. And I know we're speaking to the grief that goes along with any kind of change. I had a professor in seminary who would always say, every change brings loss and every loss must be grieved. And that's really part of the fabric of our lives now, right? Like if ever there has been a year or a season of life where we have been face to face with the challenges of change and loss and grief, it is in this season of pandemic that we are still navigating our way out of. But in the midst of this season, I want to speak to what I have found to be so life-giving and where I think our presbytery is going to find so much life as we move forward together, and that is through this lens of collaboration. Many of you might know that we have had an extraordinary experience with a Facebook initiative called Pandemic Partners here in Bend, which we launched back in March of 2020 when the pandemic was first kind of becoming a reality for folks here in the US. And Pandemic Partners has become, and over the course of the last year, has been just the most amazing community resourced, crowdsourced is what I like to say, initiative of good news in our neighborhoods here in Bend. And what I love about it the most is that it doesn't rely on me, and it doesn't rely even on First Presbyterian. It really has relied on the collaboration of so many different people, of neighbors caring for neighbors, of nonprofits and social service agencies, and even governmental agencies, really coming together and saying, we have to get through this together. We have to pay attention to how we can help each other. The only way through is by remembering that we belong to one another and that our flourishing is tied to one another's. And through Pandemic Partners, we've been able to make sure that people have access to groceries early on, and now more and more to ways where they can be involved in justice on a broader scale, in paying attention to the pandemics of houselessness, of racism, of climate change that we have been dealing with much longer than we've been dealing with COVID. And then even prior to that, when I think about collaboration, I think about extraordinary experiences with the Bend Youth Collective, where we had 5 churches doing youth ministry all together. And because of that collaboration with Pandemic Partners, with the Bend Youth Collective, and then even with things like our Presbytery Fire Recovery grants, what we see over and over when we collaborate is that, yes, sometimes it's harder, sometimes it is challenging, sometimes it makes you think about those group projects that maybe you hated when you were in school, but the outcome and even the process is so rich because of the different strengths that different individuals and groups and organizations bring to the table. And so I'm so excited to explore with you all what it will look like for us to have an imagination for how our churches can collaborate, how our presbytery can be just a place where we are getting creative in love together, love for our neighbors, love for each other, and really maybe starting to think about even community partners beyond our church doors who can join with us, who we can join with to continue embodying the love of Jesus and really being present to our neighbors in a way that they will experience the good news of God's love and of all that is sacred around us. And so I'm so excited because all that's needed is curiosity and a desire to build relationships beyond our buildings. You don't have to have a huge staff. You don't have to have a huge budget. This opens us up. It opens us up with more room to play, with more imagination for the ways that we can be good news, not only in our local communities, but as the Presbytery of the Cascades and beyond. And so I want to say to you all, friends, we already have what it takes. There are a million ways to embody good news. We have each other. We have countless community partners that maybe we haven't even met yet. But we have to remember as we go through this process, as we navigate grief and excitement and curiosity and panic all at the same time, remembering that we belong to one another, that's foundational, and that together we can embody the love and grace of God in Jesus Christ in fresh and faithful ways.
I had the privilege of working with Dawn Ludwig, who you will hear from shortly. But before I jump into that, I hope some of you were here last night and got to hear Kelly Dixon's words. By the way, are you guys hearing me? Sorry, Zoom is weird. This is my first time doing this. Sorry. So Kelly Dixon yesterday said something that I wonder if it resonates with most of you. She said at one point in her reflection, as she was being engaged by the Presbytery, she said, "I am a lifelong Presbyterian and I love being a Presbyterian." I think there are many people who love being Presbyterian, and some of the things that you'll hear echoed by our committee is that we are wondering what might be possible if we began as individuals and as churches to introduce as much energy into our shared Presbyterian witness as we do to our own individual congregations. And that's one of the themes that we continue to hear over and over and over again. And it's something that we hope to communicate with you. So our committee, as you've already heard, was tasked with developing and discerning some of the priorities that ought to be a part of a new mission and vision statement. And Dawn and I, after lots of conversations, were charged with creating the first draft, which is why you're hearing from me and from Dawn. I'm a parish associate at First Pres Portland, for some of you who are curious about it. I've been in the Presbytery just a few years. And so Dawn and I took a crack at collaborating on developing a first draft. And the first thing we realized we needed to do is we needed to define the words mission and vision first. And the reason we felt like we needed to do that is because in every organization, in every different church context, those words, mission and vision, are used differently. So I'm going to put them in the chat. If you could just pause your chatting for just a little bit. We're going to put a few things into the chat so that everyone can have words in front of them that they're seeing. So this is the language, very simply, that we use to define a mission statement and a vision statement. A mission statement is a document that articulates who we are, or aspirationally, who we want to become. A vision statement answers the question, how are we going to get there? Let's not put that up on the screen yet, please. Don has a couple more comments before he's going to mention all of that. We're not going to go in depth yet into that mission statement. So if we could take that off, that'd be awesome. So if you could take a look at the chat instead, as you think about a mission statement and a vision statement, these are working definitions that feel important. Mission statement answers the question, who are we, or aspirationally, who do we want to be? A vision statement is a document that articulates how we're going to get there. So Don's going to take it from here.
All right. Well, thank you, Carmen. And it has truly been an honor to be on the SBT team. I will say, well, I've been in Presbytery since 1997, but only about 6 years of that was full-time. Most of it was part-time as a tent maker. I'm also a tenured professor. And I would say that I am a true dying hard Presbyterian. I love being a Presbyterian. And over the years, it is certainly been concerning to me from somewhat of an outside perspective, not being here full time, but being involved and seeing things happen and wondering what is the future of our life together as Presbyterians. And when Brian asked me to join this team, I said no way, because I was doing full-time work as interim and also full-time as tenured professor, and I had no time to really devote to this, I thought, until I heard Brian really talk about the purpose of us really thinking about being innovative and transforming a vision for the future. With that, for the first time in a long time, it seemed like an opportunity for us to really think about a mission that was less about inward thinking. And it's not that our mission in the past was bad, but largely, from my perspective, it was maintaining a structure and a system that we all enjoyed together. And times are changing. And this new mission statement is our opportunity not to just think inward, but to really think outward. And what could we become together in a changing world? I love Brian's metaphor of an ambulance. And instead of having ambulances being worked on in the shop, which largely I would say we have been, this is our opportunity to really get the ambulances out and to share with each other an exciting future. So I'll have Craig put the mission statement up on the screen. And
Okay,
I'll just simply read that to you.
Paul, you'll need to share screen with me again.
And we all know that words can sometimes be put together and not really understood in terms of the depth and the shift that we are asking. But here, certainly, we're talking about focusing on collaborative ministries. The mission of the Presbytery of the Cascades is to inspire, facilitate, and nurture collaborative ministries that embody the love and grace of God in Jesus Christ in fresh and faithful ways. And simply, the shift in thinking, in my view, is very profound. It is a shift towards outward focus rather than inward focus. And lastly, I will just add, we are already seeing lots of places in the presbytery where this is already being done. I think of Pun last night in their worship service and their presentation to show how they are really already collaboratively working together in great ways. We already have Matthew 25 churches, and that the whole vision to really be more outward focused. So in my view, what this mission does and our vision to follow simply aligns a lot of the shift that is already happening and just hopefully providing a structure and systems to be able to benefit it in maximum ways. So I'm enthused and thoroughly excited about where this might take us. So Carmen.
So let me jump in here. Thank you so much, Don. Greg just put something in the chat that's really helpful, a comment that I want you to know, Greg, in just a moment, we are going to be breaking out into small groups, and Sarah Sanderson Dowdy will be articulating what we're trying to achieve in those groups and what those groups are going to be looking at, and the content of that conversation that we're hoping that will be generated there. Your comment, among many other comments, will be welcome, right? Because we want all of us to begin to try on this mission statement like we're trying on a coat, and identify places where it feels too snug or feels too roomy, if you want to work the metaphor with me. Meaning, we want you to try these words on, the language on, and Sarah again is going to go into more detail about what that will look like. I also want to give you a tip about where we're going with the vision statement. So again, this is the mission statement. Remember who we are, a description of who we are, a mission statement. The vision statement is to come. The vision statement is currently under construction. And for those of you who have been really compelled by the Matthew 25 initiative, you're going to be pretty excited, because what we've been drawn to is an adaptation and a contextualization of the Matthew 25 initiative for our particular presbytery's context. There will be very familiar language that comes from that, but it will be adapted language that hopefully will resonate with all of us here in the Presbytery of the Cascades. So what you're going to hear in just a little bit is kind of next steps, meaning I want you to know that this is not going to be your only opportunity to wrestle with the mission statement. And indeed, soon you're going to have both a mission and a vision statement in your hands that you can wrestle with and give feedback around, because we want widespread ownership and commitment to this. That's our hope, that this is representative of something that we feel the Holy Spirit is leading all of us toward. So I just wanted to give the tip of just about where we're going to go, that there is a vision statement under construction. But in this particular context, we are just going to be focusing on having conversation about why this feels like a timely moment for transformation, and how this mission statement, or an adapted mission statement, depending on what kind of feedback you all provide, can move us forward and have a trickling effect in the way it transforms us structurally and the ways that we live out ministry together. So anyway, I love that there's tons of love for Don, just so you know, going on in the chat, people, because I love him too. It has been such a joy to work with him, friends. This is one of the joys of collaboration, is building relationships. Don and I didn't know one another before being a part of this team. We both feel overcommitted in a lot of ways, and what a joy to be in relationship, because friends, we are better together. And that was one of the themes that Morgan Schmidt said in her video. Please take time to watch it. It's powerful. It's beautiful. She is an inspiration, and I want you to hear it. So anyway, Sarah, please take it over.
Great. Thanks, Carmen. So basically, what you've just heard is that our mission, who we are, and our vision, how we're going to live more fully into that identity, right? And I love that already we are starting to live into this collaborative identity that we're proposing, but there is more growth to move us into that direction. So our mission and our vision, these are works in progress, and we want to collaborate with you today and in the weeks and months to come to more fully polish and shape these documents so they can be what they need to be. And they have the concept of collaboration at their core. That is the shift that we are trying to accomplish, from siloed or individualistic or congregationally focused to collaborative, and a really deep and rich understanding of collaboration. So we are going to invite you to collaborate with us by weighing in on our work in breakout rooms. And most of the breakout rooms are facilitated by members of the team. So you will have the ear of the strategic planning team in your breakout rooms. We are really grateful that Eileen Sheeler, who we all love so much, our chair of PLC for one more hour, and Clark Scalera, our advocate for clergy and congregations, will also be facilitating small groups so that we could have slightly smaller small groups. But these are not ideally small groups, but we are going to get it as small as we can. And we'll have about half an hour and what we hope you're going to do with this half hour is to reflect on what makes this a timely moment for transformation. That's the first thing. Second, we want you to reflect on the words of the mission statement itself. And then third, we want you to share about the barriers to and opportunities for collaboration in your own context, in your communities, in your surrounding areas. Each group is going to need a note taker. We are providing facilitation, but we need somebody from your group to take notes. So if you're willing to do this, let your facilitator know right away and send the notes to your facilitator at the end of your conversation. Trust your facilitator to guide you through this process, and please be mindful of the limited time that we have and the size of your group. So that means we need to make excellent use of the chat. It also means that we need to discipline ourselves to speak briefly and to limit ourselves to concise sharing. We will take seriously the feedback we received today in breakout sessions as we polish the mission statement and develop the vision statement in coming weeks. And truly, if you have more that you want to say, we welcome you to email us and give us more input. We are very open to your input. May God bless our conversations today. Paul, would you send us away?
All right, turning it over to you, Craig. Try to, if you can, I think with what we've got going on, go double speed.
So I'm here to talk about next steps. And the first thing I want to lead off with, we are actually ahead of where we might think we are. We've been through the past several years, we have seen the need for change arising, and certainly over the last year with COVID, which seemed to accelerate the demands for change 2 years worth into 1 year. We've already taken some steps. I would name, in working in collaboration together, I would name the COVID challenge grants we issued last year and the fire relief funds just as 2 examples. I would also name, this came up in my team room, that for the past several years, we've had the vitality and technology funds that churches can tap to change. Our budget process is going to have to change to prioritize new missions and congregational care as we move through the next few years. But I think most current committee processes will work maybe with a slightly change in emphasis. Now, near term, we're going to have to recruit additional team members to broaden the diversity of our strategic planning team, and we've been working on this actually for a couple of months. We will need to implement a process for feedback on the mission statement and the vision statement. We started with that today. We're taking everything you said in all of the chat rooms away with us under our arm. And again, we invite you to write notes with longer thoughts to your moderator, to the email address they gave you to begin the session. We'll need to collate those submissions from committees to line up with the new mission and vision, and perhaps tweak our mission statement, come back to the Presbytery at the November meeting with not only a probably slightly changed mission statement, but a completed, or at least an initially completed vision statement. And of course, we will be showing you a budget at the November Presbytery meeting, and there is nothing like a budget to outline what your priorities currently are. That will be very telling. Longer term, we have a team. Brian's launching. I'm doing a significant financial model to figure out how we're going to support the levels of change and the kind of the short-term investment we need to get from where we are to where we want to get to. We'll probably need a transformation team to coordinate all this. That might be PLC, it might be a subset of PLC, it might be a different transformation team. We're going to have to figure that out. We'll need teams to probably more closely manage vitality and technology funds to make sure we apply them correctly. And looking forward, where we might have more buildings coming into the Presbytery and more different sorts of resources, we might need additional staff with some specific skills that we don't currently have. So, Josh, I hope that sped that up a little. Over to you.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you very much. Just want to also just kind of reiterate that this is not going to be the only time that you're able to engage with this subject matter. As Craig said, please email your questions to the moderator of your small group to share with our SBT team. We'll also be providing other opportunities throughout the coming months to engage with the mission study and help formulate the work on our the mission statement and the vision statement, with an intention to be presenting the full vision statement with the mission statement in our November meeting. So we welcome that. Also want to say again, just how thankful I am for serving with this amazing team. But one of the things that we have reflected in our small time together is that we have now been very heavily challenged by the words of this mission statement and the work that we have been doing around it to be a more representative and inclusive body. We did work very hard on trying to have age inclusion. We did work very hard to try to make sure that we had people that were very invested in the long-term future of the church, but we are failing in some areas. And so we are working to actually broaden our team. We want to have greater representation amongst our elders, not just amongst pastors. We also want to have greater representation outside the Portland metropolitan area. The secondary, we've done a very good job, I think, also to in gender inclusion, but we also want to be thinking more about our racial minority inclusion. And so we are also doing some work around that in order to invite some more members into the work that we are doing. That is to be also too, if we want, in essence, to be talking about an inclusionary idea of collaboration, we want to model that for the whole presbytery, and not just make a mandate to you all without trying to do the work ourselves. So we are going to be in the coming months, hopefully welcoming another couple of members to greater increase the diversity of voices at the table, engaging with the work that we are doing. But we are also going to welcome diversity of opinion through many ways through the summer. So we plan to be reaching out by regions to create feedback sessions, by different interest groups and specific demographic groups within our presbytery in order to gain a larger perspective about this mission statement and our vision statement. So thank you all for the time today, and I'm going to turn it now back over to Brian to close our time.
Thank you, Josh. Craig, are you able to put up that slide of first verse of our hymn? Called as partners in Christ's service, called to ministries of grace, we respond with deep commitment, fresh new lines of faith to trace. May we learn the art of sharing side by side and friend with friend, equal partners in our caring to fulfill God's chosen end. Called as partners in Christ's service, called to ministries of grace, we respond with deep commitment, fresh new lines of faith to trace. May we learn the art of sharing side by side and friend with friend, equal partners in our caring to fulfill God's chosen end. Madam Moderator, I believe that completes our report.